right, so let's do this.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I am talking today to Emily Stang, who is here in Toronto. Hi, Emily. How are you doing today?
Hi, Brune. It's so good to be talking with you today. I always like being face-to-face, even though we're in our own rooms.
Yeah, it's the closest thing there is to it.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're going to be one of our storytellers for Bodies of Stories number 6, which is within the 24-hour True Storytelling Festival on June 14th. So the festival starts on the 13th, the Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we have a lot of different producers in different cities and countries, and we are going to have over 100 storytellers. And you're going to be one of them. I usually use storytellers' bios to introduce them on social media before the show. And then during the show, I just introduce them with a secret fact. Because I want to show people that it's not about credentials. It's not about where you've been, what you've done. Everyone can tell a true story about themselves. Right? So, but I am going to read your bio now, and then we can go from there.
Okay.
Okay. So you are a writer, an actor, and a filmmaker. You have written and acted in short films, web series, and comedy sketch shows, but this will be your first time telling a true story. So we're going to go into that. And you are very excited, and you hope that by sharing your story, someone listening will feel a little less alone, especially during this extremely difficult time. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you sent me your story. It's very powerful. You're amazing. So can you tell us what made you want to do it? What made you want to tell a story and this story?
Yeah, I would say it was attending Bodies of Stories, like the last monthly that you did. My friend Set Shooter was in it, and she was performing. And her and I have similar tumultuous upbringings. So I've been lucky enough to like connect with her on that, especially during the pandemic. I've been able to like call her, and we can kind of connect from our history and from our history of trauma. So she was like, I'm telling this story. She shared some of her written stories with me, and I'm always blown away. And she invited me, and this was my first experience. Like I'd been to, I think, one live storytelling event, like in person in the before time, but this was my first one in a long time. And I just remember as soon as you came on, Brune, you made it feel safe. Like I was in my living room, but you cared so much for all the storytellers. You created this safe environment. You curated such a wide variety, and like you could tell that you supported them so much. And within that hour, I cried, I laughed. I was like, I knew they couldn't hear me. So I was like, yes, that is exactly what it's like. Like I was talking, and like I felt, and then at the end I was like, I felt so connected, even though I was alone in my apartment during a dark, because that's why I didn't have my camera on, because I was like, no one needs to see the face of someone who just woke up. But during a really dark time, I felt connected with all the storytellers, even the audience, because we were all kind of messaging like, wow, that's amazing. And, I was sobbing too. And so the audience and I felt connected. And then honestly, it was within an hour after that, I had written this story, and I was like, that was my first draft. Like I was so like on fire because of all these brave storytellers. Yeah. And then I think I looked at it the next day because I wanted to like sleep on it and be like, is that, like maybe edit it, sleep on it. But then I sent it in pretty much soon after that. So it was definitely your event. And the fact that it was like, I already felt safe with you, even though I didn't really know you then. And then when I met you, I was like even more safe. But it was I was like, if I'm going to tell this hard story and it's going to be my first time, like I need to do it in a safe, like supportive place. And that's what you created. Even though we're virtual, it felt very, very safe and very connected. So yeah, that's what brought me to it. It was literally within an hour of being at your event. And I was like, oh God, like just typing it out. So that's what brought me to it. Yeah.
That's so awesome. I'm so glad, honestly, like it's the reason why I do it. So thank you so much for your kind words. Oh boy.
Meaningful, like, because now we're all kind of alone, and you made me feel less alone for that whole hour. Even after, so it was huge.
That's great. So I have to say, so yeah, Bodies of Stories is a true storytelling show where we welcome all kinds of stories, the the funny, the raw, the light, the heavy. But for the heavier stories like yours, people always have to have processed things really well before they can tell the story, because otherwise it can maybe make the audience feel not super safe. So and like in your story, like it really shows that you're on the other side of it, or at least like you are using this story to be on the other side of it. And so that was something that that's just really important for people to know, that it's not just like, oh yeah, I have trauma in my life, I want to tell a story about it. Like you want to be really sure. But so I appreciated that you mentioned that you were ready, and then just workshopping your story with you, and what's the word, examining it from very close. It was a great process, and so I'm very excited for people to hear it. I think it's an important story. I think a lot of people are going to feel less alone thanks to your vulnerability. So I commend you for that.
Yeah, I think, I honestly wanted to share, because then I think for my trauma, I felt really alone in it because I was a child and there wasn't really like a lot of supports that I had. And so if one other person feels less alone because my cat's in the background. But if one other person feels less alone because of it, then that's important. But also for me, it's a healing process too. Like part of the healing from trauma is about putting words to it. So I think this is one of those stories that I was ready to put words to. Because a lot of my traumatic memories are very silent films in my head where I don't have the words to describe it. So putting words to the story and then telling it, and actually it's something, my cat only has one eye, so you'll see that. But in telling it over and over again, it's actually a process of, it loses its emotional hold on you, so you can heal from the trauma by retelling it. And this was one of those stories I was ready to put words to. I had written a couple of versions before, I told a couple of people before, so it felt like I was ready because it was already kind of processing. But I'm excited because hopefully someone will feel less alone, but also selfishly, it's a healing process too.
Absolutely.
Trauma, to share that burden and feel like it's less of a secret, because I think that's what made it feel wrong.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's absolutely like I see it as something that we do for ourselves that we're almost pushed to do. Those stories at some point they have to come out and they're ready, and but it's not like narcissistic at all. It's more because you're taking a risk, right? Being vulnerable, you don't know how people are going to react. And so, of course, you try to treat the audience with care by, with the hard bits, just taking care of the audience and making them feel safe. But lost my train of thought.
When you're talking about the audience, I think that brought me to because hearing you retell my story was really eye-opening for me, because you were there with me, you cared, you were like, we want to know you got out, we want to know you're okay. Whereas when I had shared it with people with a history of trauma before, you don't always get that same a normal reaction. Like sometimes we laugh about how dark it is because we've all kind of been there, but it was eye-opening for me because there's still that childlike voice in my head that's like, that was a normal childhood and that was totally a normal experience, and like, what are you calling it traumatic for? But then seeing your face and then seeing your reaction to it, I was like, it's nice because the audience can also give you that support because they're there with you the whole time. So even though you're reliving this experience that's traumatic, the difference is you're not alone in it. And the audience does want you to be okay and does want you to have processed it and have grown from it. Like I just saw so much love from you, and I was like, because counselors are very, when you tell these stories, because they're like not supposed, but seeing that love and that care, it was really eye-opening for me. It was the first time I saw an audience, first time I told somebody other than
Yes.
trauma counselors, and it was really,
Right.
it was very touching. I was like choked up when I saw your reaction to it versus, yeah, it
Yeah,
was,
I understand that.
yeah.
Um, and I think that's what's so powerful about true storytelling shows, is that you can touch everybody regardless of whether they have been through similar experiences or not, as long as you know how to tell a story, and you do, definitely.
Oh, I'm still learning though. Your notes were so great. Like when I met with you and you were like these tweaks, and like I'm learning so much about, because normally the stories I've told have been through scripts or like sketch scripts or film scripts or through editing. Like this is a whole different genre, and I love it. And I love
Yeah,
you're so like supportive, and I'm learning so much already. So
cool. Well, so am I.
yeah.
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone that the theme of the festival, which also in which your story fits perfectly, the theme is when the impossible becomes possible, true stories of unexpected surprises, human resilience, and coming through on the other side. So there is going to be some stories like yours that are a bit on the heavier side, but are so necessary for people to hear, and also balanced out with other lighter, funnier, or not funnier, but just lighter stories of, I don't know, surprising events. And so, yeah, the show will be 1 hour with 6 storytellers within the 24-hour True Storytelling Festival again. So if you want to attend the festival, it's in our link down below. And Bodies of Stories will be on the Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you can watch wherever you are in the world. You can watch from on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, and all the proceeds from the festival are going to go to 8 charities that were chosen by all the producers of working on the festival. Charities that work for racial justice, LGBTQIA plus folks, and youth, and animal rights. And so, you know, I really encourage everyone to donate to access this wonderful event where from home during 24 hours, you really get to see like curated stories from all around the globe. It's pretty cool. So yeah, and I think it's interesting to go back to just the idea that it's a new art form for you. I think it's interesting that you've worked in film and you're a writer. Like it really showed in your story when I received it that it's very scene by scene. It's very visual. It's very vivid. So I think it's very important in a story to just make us see and make us feel what's happening.
Yeah.
It's
And
really
I think
cool.
that's because the first take I did, I just talked into my phone. And so because I think that's the thing with my memories, and maybe because I did work in film, like I started with books and literature, but then I moved into film because I really love showing versus telling, which is something I still need to get better at. But I see the, like, especially with the traumatic images, like I see them in my head, like a script, like a shot. So it was easier for me to do the first take talking, and then but then I did a little too much writing in between for something that's going to be oral. So but it's really interesting because in my head, especially the traumatic memories are like silent films, so it is scene by scene. So putting words to that is really hard, but also it's like that's all I see is those images. So yeah.
So for people who are not very familiar with the idea of show, don't tell, can you explain a bit and maybe give an example either from your experience or just an example?
Oh yeah. One of my favorite experiences, and I haven't seen this movie again in a long time, but I need to see it. When I was 20, my best friend passed away from cancer, and I went through grieving at a very like young age when you feel invincible at 20. You don't think about dying. And then all of a sudden your best friend is dying. And I watched a single man which is a film. Colin Firth, I believe, is in it.
Okay.
And the way it's written, like he's contemplating ending his own life, and because he's lost his love, so he's grieving, and they show it. There's just these scenes where he's drowning, like he's not actually in the story drowning, but his body is drowning. They do just, and then he has flashbacks to when his lover was still alive, and like I just remember being like, that is what grief feels like.
Right.
Showing, like, I just remember the drowning scenes and being like, yes. Somebody who may not have been through that would be like, why are they showing the drowning scenes? I was like, oh yes. To me, that was the first example I remember, and the most like stunning of like, show don't tell. So they're not telling us what grief feels like, they're showing us. It feels like drowning. It feels like you can't get your head above water. It feels like you're living in the past. It feels like you have these flashbacks. I think that's the one that stands out the most to me. Show don't tell is because it was such a visual representation of grief, which is really hard to put into words. So the fact that they visually, because some things don't have words, like some things are wordless, like trauma can be very wordless. So to be able to show it is powerful. Yeah.
And yet, like when we are speaking or writing, words are all that we have, but like it's like language is going to fall short. It's just how it is.
Yeah, sometimes sometimes.
But we can just try our best, right? And use it to the best of our abilities. So like, even though in the process of preparing a story for the stage or for the screen, like in an online storytelling show, a lot of people are going to write, like not everyone, but like I personally recommend to write it out. And the process of writing is going to, maybe sometimes you're going to want to tell things like, I was grieving, or, with this example, but saying like, I was drowning is so much more powerful. And of course we know that you're not literally drowning, but yeah. So
but I love that note that you gave when we were meeting on it. You're like, because I would say, oh, but it was because of this, and you're like, trust that the audience will get that from just telling the story. And there were so many things that I was trying to, like explain, or like, and you're like, that happens after the fact. Like, take us with you on that story, and all of that is going to be implied in your story. The audience will get it. The audience will be there. That was a huge thing for me, because sometimes I write and I'm like repetitive, or I try and, here's why. Where no, let the audience get there. Yeah.
I think any sentence that's a bit of an explanation or an opinion or a reflection is going to take us away from the story, and again, like, leave it to the audience to have their own opinion and reflection. A story is so much more powerful without what you think of it. We just want to be in the scene and see what happens, and then we absorb it and we make of it what we may, as opposed to someone telling us, oh, this is what it's about, and which can be also sometimes like, when we're in the audience, it's like, yeah, we're not dumb, we just saw what happens. Like, you don't have to over explain.
Yeah, like the moral of the story, because people go, the moral of the story is, I'm like, I don't want your moral. I will make my own morals of the story.
Yeah, exactly. And this is how I learned.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh no, I just wanted to thank you, because it's terrifying to be doing this, but also really exciting, because when I met with you the first time, you're like, this is a hard story, and you were there for me from the beginning, and you're like, like, I feel supported, I feel loved, I feel like you want the story to be heard and succeed, and your notes are really good. Like, honestly, you're the reason why I feel safe sharing it. So I want to thank you, because I think it'll get easier the more I tell stories, but honestly, for the first time, like, I couldn't imagine doing it with anyone else, because it's, seriously, from the beginning, like even before we met, but then when we met, I was like, I feel so supported and so loved, so that regardless of what the reaction is, I already know that I have that love and that support. So I already feel safe. I already feel safer to share it, which is huge. So I
That's
want
awesome.
that. Yeah.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much. Yeah, so just for the audience, Bodies of Stories is usually within a meeting, which is what you were describing at the beginning, where we are all the audience and the storytellers and myself, the host, in the same room, so to speak. And during the festival, it will be a webinar. So it will just be us, you, the storytellers, and myself. Yeah, it will be interesting. So it will be both a bit more intimate, and also we don't know who's watching.
Yeah. Or what their reactions are, which is interesting too from a performance standpoint, because sometimes with film you don't know what people's reactions are going to be, but with theater you get immediate feedback, so it'll be a mixture. It'll be
yeah. So there will be people who can people can watch the live streams on different social media accounts, and people can also, if they donate $50 or more, they can access the webinar and be inside the webinar and chat with us. And so, yeah, that's just, there are 70 spots for those people. So if you want to be like, it's just the best visioning experience. Is that a word? Visioning? I don't know. I'm French.
It can be today. It's a pandemic. We can make up words. Shakespeare makes up words all the time. We can make
like
up.
That. Cool. All right. Well, so excited. So I will see you on Sunday at 11:30 for our little meeting before the show at 12 p.m. So yeah, the festival is June 13th and 14th. Check out the Eventbrite link down below, and see you soon. Talk to you soon, Emily. Thank you.
Thank you, Brune.
Bye.
Bye.